I don't really have any special plans layout to talk about, so I'm basically going to go off of questions that people have about anything relating to the pits whatsoever. Does anybody have any specific questions that they want to start with? Or do you just want me to start talking about what a good idea for a pit would be? Any comments at all? Well, the standard competition size would be an 8-foot square or a 10-foot square. So it can be anywhere in there. It's going to be one of those two dimensions though.
How big will the ones say?
I think they're 10 feet, but I mean, a lot of places are lenient with their measurements, and I mean, normally people will push out a little bit. So just plan for an 8-foot pit if you don't know what it's going to be before you get there, because it's always nice to get that extra 2 feet. Other than that, it can get really crowded, so a lot of pits, it's nicer to have them smaller, keep things clean. If you have large objects, that clutters up real quick. So keeping things organized, like if you have bins for storage and stuff, make sure that you have them labeled, organized, so they have a certain spot to go to. That's one of the worst things about pits, is it's such a small space to have a robot and all the tools and people working. So what our team does is we keep a limited amount of people in there, and then we have a designated spot for all the workstations. So like we have a controls area where all things controls related stay, and then we have hardware areas, tools, and everything all organized in the back. So that way everybody's working in the back, and it leaves the front open for people to come up to us. It makes the pit more inviting to other people. Other teams that are looking for parts are always able to get in to ask. Some people have a lot of pit displays and stuff, and I don't know a lot about doing pit displays because we never really have enough room for a display. So usually we'll have a bin for like materials for talking about and stuff like that. But it's nice to have at least one shelf or one designated area out at the front to like brand your team or something. If you guys check out our pits, it's pretty easy to find because we have lots of colors. We'll do certain things, like we have lights on the bottom of all of our stuff. I don't think they're turned on today, but we have lights, we make things look good, and then we try and keep it clean. The better a pit looks, the more memorable it is to a judge. Well, at least the better memory it is to a judge. So having something cleaned up and nice and organized is always a plus when judges are coming around. Also, you want to keep in mind that judges do come around and they see everything, and you want to keep it inviting for judges to come up and talk to. So it's always nice to have, one area that's out of the way for judges to come in and you can talk to them about the robot and make it easy so that they're not like climbing around people that are actually working on the robot. So keeping it clean is the biggest part. Do you have any questions about keeping it clean?
You've got a million little bits there, right? How do you organize all this stuff?
Well, depending on what your team does, like our toolbox has all of our tools organized, and if I find a tool laying on another tool in the toolbox, I close the toolbox and lock it. I don't let people touch it. It's got to be clean so people know where tools are and you're not losing stuff. Hardware bins, we keep everything organized in bins. We'll have a box for like Q20 hardware, and then a box for like 5/32, small stuff, different boxes for different hardware, and we keep it all in the same spot. So you know where all the hardware is, and then you can go in and find what you need quick. Same thing with spares. You can like keep spares in bins and keep everything grouped in what it would be used with. It's a lot easier to find things, especially if another team comes up and asks for something, you'll know where it is. So another good part about, or another good planning part in pits is having a designated area for just spares, so you can pack lots of spares for other teams. If you check out our pits, we have one table that just has 2 bins in it, and that's all just spare parts for, we have things from pneumatic wheels to controls parts like Victors. I think we have a couple of Jags. A lot of different spare parts, so that if we have something go wrong, we have the part. But if other teams have something wrong, we have plenty of parts for them. I'm pretty sure we have a spare C-Rio down there too. So it's a good idea to keep your pit inviting for other teams. Another good thing to do would be, just provide for other teams. Like, we have a vise that we put out on the end of our pit so that other teams can use it. We keep a trash can and a first aid kit at the edge of our pit so that it's visible. Teams around us can see it, get to it quickly. So we don't just plan for our team. We plan for other teams that might not be able to handle, might not have the space to pack something, or if an event doesn't have enough trash cans. It's very nice having a trash can in your pit. I don't know what else you guys want me to say. Is there any other questions?
Give one more prompting question. You also talked a little about like branding and getting your consistent colors and messages, symbols. Anything to that?
It's a lot of teams. Their pits have personalities. In my mind, if you're designing a pit, it's got to be designed to who's going to be in the pit working. Because if it's made for somebody that's not going to be there, and they have a different way of thinking than some people, it can be hectic working in that environment. Because I'm very picky about my pits. I'm in the pits 24/7 at competition. I rarely get out to see the field. I'm in the pits. That's what I do. And so it's more catered to my personality and working ethic, keeping it clean, organized, functional. So being able to see that pit, you can tell that it's our team. Like, even if we didn't have the colors there, it always functions the same way. So seeing other teams' pits, like with their signs and everything, like, you recognize their pit. And having that branded pit just recognizable. Making your pit recognizable is always a good thing. Not only can judges recognize your team from a distance and see how well you work in your pits, other teams that might be looking for you or have a question for you or might even need a part and borrow something and then need to return it, it's always easy for them to find a recognizable pit that's, it's got your team name visible, easy to see, similar colors, just the way it's set up. If it's unique, it's really easy to remember. These are always good things to think about when you're designing your pit. Also, you want to design functionality in bringing it in. You don't want to be bringing a bunch of empty boxes, carrying that back and forth, loading in at competitions, because we've done that before and it kills. So what we did, we designed boxes. So our pit, all of our stuff fits in our tables and our coffin. And our coffin's just a giant chair. So that has all of our storage in it. It sucks because it weighs about 500 pounds when it's full, but it's one way to keep things together, and it's a quick trip into the pits, load up, and you're done. So keeping things functional like that. We used to have a giant pit display that a lot of teams have and set up, and we got tired of doing that. We just thought it would be better to design a pit that's easy to see but doesn't have all the time and setup and moving of parts for a big display. So you got to think about trade-offs between what you want it to look like and how much work you want to do setting it up and tearing it down before and after competition. Have any of you ever done the pit setup and tear down? It's not much fun, is it? That's why it's easy to roll things in and just leave them there. Having pit displays to set up, it's not always the best thing to do. Yeah, it looks good and it shows that your team's there, but if it's a big elaborate display, that's time that you're taking away from focusing on your robot and your competition and meeting other teams. I prefer our students to spend as little time as possible in the pit. I want them there to fix the robot and be able to talk. That's about it. The only other reason that they should be there is if they're showing guests, or spreading the word first. I mean, there should not be much movement in the pit other than what needs to get done. Any other questions? Yeah.
So, do we need to test our
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as the time opens up, you're allowed to do anything you want with your robot. You can, as long as you once you're measured though, like if you weigh in and check in, you can't make any major modifications, but you can still modify things and fix them. If you add a lot of stuff, you'll have to get reweighed, stuff like that. Any questions?
I have a question. So, what process do you go through when you're rationalizing what's supposed to bring you in, what things to bring to things?
Well, basically, what I do when we're talking about packing up to go to a competition and bringing everything we need in our pits, we look at what we've used the most throughout the year and what we know that we will just, it's something that's always a good tool to have just in case other teams use it. We have a lot of space, and the way that we keep our toolbox and everything organized, we pretty much have any tool that you would need, and we usually have any spare part that you would need because we store lots of extra we store raw materials that we don't even use on our robot just in case other teams use it. So if you have the space for it, I mean, tools are important. Make sure you have enough spare materials that you use on your robot packed up, but just use the space that you have without using all of your pit. Keeping it organized, you can have lots of stuff that you don't use often. We have 3 boxes that we don't open unless somebody needs a spare part. So they stay tucked away, they don't get in the way, and we always know that we have those parts there in case somebody needs it. Half of the time we don't even get into it unless another team breaks down and they need help. That's when that stuff comes out. But keeping it organized in a toolbox, we have one toolbox that has everything that we use all year. And it's simple to bring into.
if there's serious damage to a robot, does it have to be weighed in behind?
Most likely not. I mean, usually they only reweigh it before the actual the finals. But I mean, if a judge, they'll have you reweigh it if a judge comes by and sees you changing a huge aspect of it. If you're adding a lot, judges might ask you to get reweighed, but normally you don't have to until the finals. Any other questions? So, guys in the back, any questions, comments, anything?
We want to know how to keep kids out of the pit. That's one of our hardest struggles.
You have troubles with keeping your teammates out? Gets annoying, doesn't it? All right. Well, normally we'll have one person in charge of the pits, and we'll call them the pit boss. So they'll be in charge of, making sure that the robot has a schedule, everything's prepared for the next match, and they are the one who can tell students that they need to, go back to the stands, go out to wherever the rest of your team is, or just go talk to other teams. But we have a lot of space in our pits, and our students like to hang around too. But normally we have a rule that says if we're within a half an hour of our next match, we don't want visitors on our team. And so what we do is we have our students go out to other teams' pits. If they want to hang out in the pits, we tell them to go talk to other teams, go do something else productive other than just hanging out in our pits. Because it's nice to see your own students and you know, hang out with your friends, but you don't need to do it in your pit. You can do it outside, you can walk around, you can talk to other people.
Pit boss, a student.
Doesn't matter, it's whatever your team wants. Like I'm a second year alumni, and I'm the pit boss for our team. But I became pit boss as a senior in high school. So normally it was our mentor Jimmy Nichols. If you guys know him, he was the senior mentor last year, right? I think he was Ohio's senior mentor last year. But he was our pit boss for our team up until he got tired of doing it and gave it to me. So it's whoever you can designate, whoever you want. You just, and it can be a combination of a student and mentor team, like working together. You know, it's nice to train students to be in a leadership position and you know be able to keep people productively working on the robot and keeping things organized. It's nice to have schedules of people too. If a lot of people want to be in the pits working, what we'll do is we'll assign schedules of rotation. So we'll have like 3 people working at a time, and we'll work them for half a day, and then the next half of the day we'll have 3 other students come in. It all depends on how many students you want there working. It's basically a team decision though. Any other questions?
Okay, can we thank our speaker?
I work